But a day shall come when everyone will give an account of what they did against others. That day of reckoning shall come. I'm telling you, nobody goes scot-free and nobody goes unpunished that touches others innocently, or you use others to cause others pain, for gain, for money, for influence, for exposure, or for a cause. But a day shall come when everyone will give an account of what they did against others. That day of reckoning shall come. I'm telling you, nobody goes scot-free and nobody goes unpunished that touches others innocently. You use others to cause others pain, for gain, for money, for influence, for exposure, or for a cause.
Hi, Sammy. I can't actually hear the audio too well so far, but hopefully we can fix this because I'm looking forward to the conversation with you.
Can you hear?
That's a little bit better. Yeah, go ahead again.
Okay. So, yes, my main guest is Mike Altamura.
That is
great. Great. I'm glad. Well, my main guest, like I told you, is Mike Altamura. He's an astute boxing manager. I mean, he's been everywhere, all over the continent. I mean, he's been not just the continent. He's been in like 80 different countries. This is a man that you see him, and just like they say, Egypt is the Nile and the Nile is Egypt. He's been everywhere. That's the man, Mike Altamura. But for the purposes of those people that do not know Mike Altamura, and my show is being watched all over Africa and even the world. The last time we checked our statistics, the US of A were leading before Saudi Arabia, then South Africa, even before Ghana. Interestingly, those are very interesting figures. But Mike, for the benefit of those that do not know you, probably meeting you for the first time, can you please tell us who is Mike Altamura?
Yeah, well, I been in the boxing industry pretty much my whole life. I started writing for a bunch of boxing publications in Australia at age 11, and gradually that led to stumbling into management at 17 years of age. And it's been an interesting journey. 24 years since then in the management game, as you noted, traveling throughout the world, and I've been blessed to work with some of the finest talents. And you know, I've always prided myself on looking for diamonds in the rough, and I believe that there's so many diamonds in the rough within Africa. I think we just saw a reflection of that in the boxing competition at the All African Games staged there in Accra. And, you know, so a lot of the time when I was coming through in the sport, the opportunities, the fighters seeking opportunities are always from places that are overlooked or overseen. And oftentimes that's from developing countries. So I was blessed to build in certain places in Ghana, in Kenya, South Africa, work with some of the best fighters in the continent. And yeah, like I said, over 24 years, there's been countless top tier fighters I work with throughout the world, and 10 world champions in total. And I just feel blessed to be able to have at least some part in the industry I love, and I'm excited to see what is going to present especially out of Africa in the years to come, because as you would have seen at the All African Games, there's so many talented fighters and young fighters coming through the ranks.
Okay. No, Mike, you know, already my text console is beaming with messages, and I'm so grateful. I'm sure we're going to have a fantastic day. Let me ask you this. For many people, they shy away from coming to Africa, let alone coming to see whether or not we have talent. For elsewhere, people see Africans are like, you know, they just want to come and cash in and just leave. I mean, they are really not after any world title whatsoever. Mike, what motivated you to come to Africa, and for that matter, Ghana?
Well, I think that with Ghana, if you really look at the history, and maybe it's just from my side of the world, being born and raised in Australia, of course, we're all too familiar with the greatness of Azuma Nelson, you know, destroying our hero, at the time undefeated hero, Jeff Fennick, in their rematch at Princes Park in front of almost 40,000 people. But if you really look at boxing historically and you study the craft, the fighters that really achieve from under the radar are usually from developing countries. And it's because on the way through, even throughout their amateur journey or whatever it may be, they're not accorded the same opportunities as fighters from established westernized countries. So I've always felt that talent in African nations is grossly underestimated and underrated throughout the world. It's undervalued. I think that also, if you look at the capability to improve and the ability to find diamonds in the rough, and to me, that's the fun part. And I also look at where you can have contributions for social change. And I think if you look at the sport in Ghana, again, another talent I was blessed to work with was Isaac Dogbe. And I think that really, if you look at Isaac's rise to the World Championship, it had the habit of lifting an entire nation. If you look at boxing, the performances of the fighters, the talent that has come through since those times, I think that you can see that one individual effort or one fighter succeeding at the absolute top heightens and elicits a lot of interest and inspiration within the country. And I think that if you look at other places throughout the world, that's not necessarily so. So to be able to inspire a nation, to build some social changes, that's what motivates me. And I just feel that there's so many gifted kids out there that will never get the look in. I remember Joshua Cloddy saying it years ago that he was told when he was in the United States, you'll never be anything but the B-side. And how many times did he turn up to the party and upset the apple cart all the way to opportunities with Cotto, and then, of course, huge payday against Manny Pacquiao. But if you look at the journey he had to go through to reach that level, it's considerably different to someone, say, from Australia, the UK, the USA, Germany, that has all the decks stacked in their favor. So I guess some of my part of wanting to be involved at a deeper level within African countries is to adjust them odds a little bit and to see more fighters receive the opportunity while also living my dreams of being successful in this game as well. You look at the journey he had to go through.
Mike, I'm going to ask you this, and this is pretty sensitive because, you know, I've asked managers, promoters, especially managers. They'll tell you that it's not worth, you know, managing a boxer in Africa. You probably need to manage him till like you get, you know, a shot at the world title or probably, you know, big money, those stuff. Mike, is boxing business dead in Africa, or is it that we are not seeing the business side of it?
No, you just need to know how to sell the sport. I think that what's different in Africa compared to other countries, and this is why I've always pushed for government involvement and government support, is that you don't have significant broadcast rights. So, you know, in certain countries, you might receive, even for a general level event, USD $100,000, $150,000 plus production from a broadcast company. You're not seeing that in Ghana, for example. So you really, when it comes to investment in talent, then you look at your events. You can't go and charge $700 for a ringside seat over there, unless it's, you know, an absolute elite event. You might be able to sell to a few hundred VVIPs, but you don't have the same money that you can generate at the gate. So really, you're wholly reliant on sponsorship to carry the event and to carry the opportunities for the fighters. And just to give you an example, if you look at, say, let's take WBO, WBC, WBA, IBF, any of the global titles, the sanction fees on those titles cost the same no matter where they're staged throughout the world. So to run a title like that in Australia, for example, you can get the sponsorship, you might get a bit of input from TV, you sell the tickets, and you've got multiple layers and tiers to be able to pay the bills. Whereas in Africa, oftentimes you're wholly reliant on sponsors. You don't have a lot trickling through the gate to pay the bills, to cover the fighters per se. When it gets to an international level, at a development level, the sport is the same all around the world. But when you have fighters start getting top 10, top 15 in the world, you get gridlock, which is why even, for example, you look at Alfred Lamptey, his last few fights weren't in Accra. You know, he was out there in Dubai because he's got to a level that it's extraordinarily difficult to bring those kind of fights and opportunities to the country with the structure in place. So that's why oftentimes you'll see when, you know, our fighters reach a certain level, we're appealing to government for support, whether it's a sports ministry, tourism ministry, because, and again, Ghana is a great example. If you look at people's familiarity with Ghana around the world, oftentimes it comes from two sports. It comes from soccer or it comes from professional boxing. You don't see, you know, when you have even, if you know someone's name is Albert Mensah, you know that they're Ghanaian in a movie. But you don't, but you don't see when they're introduced at the start of the movie the Ghanaian flag next to their name. Whereas in boxing, someone fights internationally, they always carry their country, you know, true to their name, and that's a representation, and that's a aspect of tourism as well. So that's what I've always preached. But I think that I don't think boxing's dead, but I think that we've got to really adjust and tweak how we go out and sell the sport, because even, you know, like I was just having a conversation with one of the trainers in Australia here, John Bastable, because we have a very promising young Nigerian fighter here called Blessing Dada. She's 8 wins, no losses, but she's based in Brisbane now. I was just saying to him that the difficult part with all of these international fighters, and she's adjusting well, by the way. But when you take somebody, if you have a young kid who's grown up in Bukong, they know the Bukong way, they know the pacing, the lifestyle, and you go and drop them in Las Vegas, it's a massive culture shock. And unless you build a community around them, they're going to get lost, which is why you see so many fighters travel out of Africa who are very gifted and very talented, and they go to the United States or the UK and they just become opponents. It's because you need really the right support and the right layers in the lifestyle to really guide them to the top.
Well, that's very revealing. Mike, tell me something. You talked about the business side of boxing. I mean, if I'm a layman and I'm coming to boxing, if I'm investing money into boxing, where am I going to get my returns? Where are the areas that, boxing makes its money? Can you share that with me?
Yeah, well, I mean, we all know in the industry, like fighters make money when they get to the money. So it's getting to the world championship level. That's a level where you're really gonna be able to see revenue. But if you're a businessman and you're investing, you've got to look at why you're investing. If you're investing just to invest in boxing, trying to make money, there's probably many other industries where it's much easier to make money. A lot of people do it for social reasons, why they invest in boxers. A lot of people like to empower the youth and see somebody on a journey and to be part of the journey and find that fulfilling. If you're looking at investment, any kind of investment is a risk. But with boxing, if you're going to take that risk, you need to create the environment. And what I find and what I see is that a lot of companies will invest 2/3 of the money they should, and then they hold back on the rest of the investment. And there's a bit of an apprehension. If it's a car, the handbrake's on, and that's what prevents the people getting to the top. And what I mean by that is, and we see it with boxers out of Ghana. They get to the United States, they get with a small management group, they get 1 win, 2 wins, and then they just, they might have left Ghana 12 wins, no losses. They get 1 or 2 wins in the United States, and then they just get used up as opponents and thrown in the deep end. Whereas if someone's properly investing in you, they'll invest in 4 or 5 fights and give you the opportunity to grow and develop, work with a new training team, adjust your nutrition, bring different aspects to your craft. And I don't know if you've ever heard of this saying, but cheap is expensive.
Yeah,
and
cheap is expensive.
if you're not all in and don't make the full investment in a fighter, you're guaranteed to fail. It is a tricky trade, but we've seen with the talent that's come out of the country, you can hit it. You can hit the highest level. You look at from Richard Comey to Dogbe, Agbeko. There's so many talented kids have come out of Ghana in recent years as well and been able to flourish and land big opportunities. And then if you look at Africa in general, from South Africa, world champions, you look at the amateur system now, Mozambique strong. Ghana just had great All-African games. You've got, DRC, Congo, very, very strong. They've produced a number of world champions on the professional scene. I think that if you look at how to sell the sport and how it can be invested in, it can be profitable, but it's a tricky terrain.
So, Mike, let me ask you this. I have this. I think he's a young manager. He's basically asking that, is it wise to invest in boxing as a manager, especially if you are in this part of the world? That's my question to Mike. Okay, I'll do that. I think Mike heard it. But let me ask my subsequent question. I mean, when you finish with what he asked, my thing is, so television is not pulling up. Sponsors, as in brand sponsors and all those kid sponsors and the rest, they are also not pulling up in Africa. Is that the case, or is it a case of we not probably packaging it well to these so-called corporate bodies for them to buy into it? Because at the end of the day, a company is trying to sell its brand and would like to attach itself to a brand that will sell his product, because it should be a win-win affair. When it turns out the other way, then it becomes a problem. What really is the problem, Mike?
think it's a case-by-case basis. I don't think every country or every structure is the same. But I think that you want to take Ghana as an example.
Let's use Ghana. Run me through Ghana.
If you want to take Ghana as an example, there's too many mismatches on the events.
Okay. When you say mismatches, expatiate a little bit on that for me.
A kid 6 wins, no losses, fighting a guy 4 wins, 38 losses. And you see that 6-7 times on the same show. You see these guys putting in absolute non-efforts and quitting in the corner and not trying. And I think that you need competitive matchups to draw sponsors and in time to draw television. But I also understand that if you're a manager and you're bringing your young talent along, you're not going to risk the investment if you're paying for everything. But what I would say to any of the managers is that you're better to, for lack of a better expression, you're better to blow up your investment and find out the limitations of your fighter early than you are to go and build a fraudulent record, of 10 wins, 12 wins, 13 wins, whatever, but they've never fought nobody. I think that you're better to develop against the best within your country and see who can succeed within that system. I think that if we have more of that, you'll see more fighters coming out of the system and succeeding, and you also build more fandom to the sport because then people are excited for the fight. You look at the fights that moved the needle in Ghana, Bukam Banku and Basti, one of them, right? You had remember George Ashe and Emmanuel Tago.
Yeah, that was big.
that was a big fight. It drew a lot of interest. The reason why these fights drew interest is because people were divided on who would come out victorious. They were curious to see how it would play out. And I think that that's what the sport is at the absolute highest level that it can be sold. In terms of investing in fighters, I would encourage anyone to invest in the sport there. I think that you're getting very good value for money in terms of, like I look at it like this. If your boxer can win a world championship or at least compete and be in the top 10 in the world, they're going to make money. They're going to bring revenue for you regardless of where they're from. If they're elite, they're elite. Take Richard Comey as an example. He went to the UK. He had the Commonwealth title. He beat a number of top tier contenders and he found his way to eventually win a world championship. I think that if you got talent that you believe in and they're good enough, they'll be good enough. And what I see over there is because of the way the economy is set up, it's a lot cheaper to develop a fighter in Africa than it would be in the UK, the US, Australia, or European countries. So that's the benefit you have in terms of the development. But I think that you can't miss ticking the boxes on the development, and in regards to styles of opponents and bettering the opponents.
Mike, I know elsewhere boxers are actually giving match tickets to their fans. Here it is not so. Here as well, you have boxers and they're following, especially the fans wanting to come to the stadium or probably the boxing arena for free and all that. Do you think this is also part of the problem why those promoters and managers are not really making their money?
Yeah, I know from packing out, 2,000 above capacity at the Bukam Boxing Arena with Dog Bay and Warriors. And I know from those experiences, it's very difficult. As soon as you go past the VVIP level, it's very, very difficult to be able to sell tickets to your common fans. I think that, it's just the way the economy is set up. I'm not sure necessarily how you can adjust that long term. I mean, you could give fighters on the undercard 50 tickets each to go and sell. Are they going to be able to sell them, or are they just going to give them away? Because that's the way that the industry has been structured over a period of time. So I think that you need to do a complete restructure of adjusting expectations. But is it going to be considered to be sellable when, what would you prefer, to stage an event at the Bukam Boxing Arena and have 4,000 people there, but only having sold 500 tickets, or having sold 550 tickets but having empty stands? So it's a big catch-22, and it's a balance. But I do think that if you built the experience and you had better fights to sell that intrigue the public, I think that eventually you'll build the fandom up. It's going to take maybe a 5-year period, but I think eventually you'll build the expectation of the fans to come out. But right now, I know from having promoted over there, I know what the expectation is, that, you know, unless you're the absolute cream where you're sitting right there ringside, you're expecting a 3 ticket. People aren't paying, even if it's only 40, 50 seaters, whatever it is, people aren't expecting to pay for that in the stands.
That's very true. Okay, so if you just plug onto the domain, of course, we are live with the man Mike Altamura, an experienced manager by all standards. I mean, look, this man, you just need him to write some few words for you. It will open doors. He's as big as that. It doesn't come any bigger than that. We're very grateful to have him. But if you're joining me, wherever you're watching me from, just leave a message wherever you're watching me from. Definitely, I would love to read it. Of course, the number as well to reach me is +1 815 302 5489. It's just a WhatsApp line. Hopefully, we'll see when we have time. We'll try and see if we can pick calls. But yes, leave me messages. If you have any message for Mike, definitely leave that message. I would love to read it out there. If you're watching me on Facebook, leave a comment. Definitely, I'll read it. I'll definitely read it. Today, I have enough time for you guys, and definitely I'll read it. So leave your messages as well. And of course, you can also WhatsApp me on +1 815 302 5489. Of course, we are airborne. Mike, so if I get you well, how crucial is television in development of African boxing? How crucial is that?
I'll tell you what's more important than just television. And I was just having the same conversation with some promoters out here. It's not just having 2 hours on TV, say GTV Sport or whatever. It's the shoulder programming you need to build and profile the sport. You know, what guys like yourself do, we need it on a much higher scale, which is to build awareness. Ghana do it well, I have to say. Like in the run with Isaac Dogbe, the interest, the support, the build-up, the little preview shows, even 2-3 weeks out from the event, everything was very positive, which would then build to be able to sell the event, to draw sponsorship and the rest of it. Obviously, there's more that can be done, but what I think you need is a network to be behind the sport that is going to profile the sport. So you can guarantee you're going to have your news coverage. You're going to guarantee you're on mainstream sports programs. If there's a major soccer match airing on that network at halftime, you have the 2 fighters there present at the event to build and profile the boxing event. I think if you do this in time, you build the stars and you build the personalities. So the support needs to come with a full structure from the network. If you do that, then you're starting to really generate what's needed. But I think that, like I said, from a broadcast perspective, the sport needs to adjust a bit there. The production needs to be slicker in terms of the timing. I think that one of the biggest frustrations I've had running events in Ghana specific is that if on my instruction, if we advertise the main event as being at midnight, it has to be at midnight. It can't be at 3 a.m. I think that timing for TV is paramount. And I think that when you're trying to work to a TV slot, you got to look to see what times actually work. Prime time works on TV. So if you're going to secure a prime time slot, you need to make sure that your timings are on point. And I know that you guys get cards from all around the world. You get ESPN cards. You get the events from South Africa, from SuperSport over the years. So you see how the timing works on these events. And I think that that's what needs to be mirrored. I think that if it runs like a slick magazine show where you have profiles of fighters, you have profiles of upcoming events, you go to the fights, the coverage is engaging, it's not too drawn out, I think that then you can build and secure the support of the younger fans as well. Because the people there love boxing. That's that we know unequivocally. If you engage them and you give them reasons to care, they're there.
Mike, tell me this. I mean, many boxers, when you talk to them, they'll tell you government should come to their aid. Even some promoters as well, they'll tell you government must invest in it. What are the areas do you think that when we do this investment, it will help the promotion of boxing, not just in Ghana, but in Africa?
Yeah,
how much should government get involved? Yeah, go ahead.
I think the government should be involved at a much more significant level. I don't necessarily know if they need to be involved on the development show level, because they've got to pick and choose. But even out here, when we have a significant event, so Kambosos Lomachenko, that wouldn't be possible in Australia unless there was government support. So the government come to the party, you send them a proposal, they deem what they believe to be the right amount to bid to host and stage that event in the city. But beyond that, they give you the resources. So you can't expect that every promoter is just going to be equipped with all the resources to build and sell an international event. They need assistance with marketing. They need assistance with promotional materials, with everything else, with establishing ticketing sales. So it's not just literally them selling them from the back of their car, on a side street in Bukom. It needs to be a well-oiled machine. If you have those tiers, the government have all these departments set up. The one thing we know, especially in Ghana, is the citizens are extraordinarily educated. You have so many gifted and talented people that have gone to, say, university, study journalism, but then can't find or secure the right opportunity to work as a publicist, to work with credible companies, to build their careers. Why don't we set up task forces that, you come out of graduation, maybe 10 graduates get picked, they get put on these task forces for a boxing event, boxing series, and they're all out writing copy, presenting content, producing videos, and like an intern type fee. Obviously they receive something, but at least they're given a job, they're given a head start in the industry. It's with government, so they can receive letters of recommendation. But further, then the promoters have support. You can't just, and I'm telling you this like straight out as well, you can't just say if a promoter needed 50K USD for an event to happen, you can't just give them the money and say good luck. You need to be able to provide all the resources. You need to see if they need help with structuring the event, with the publicity, with the overseeing and production of the event. I think that's the best way that you get bang for your dollar, as they say. That's how you can guarantee it. I've seen it in my own country, so I know the blueprint. And here it's that they will structure and place an entire team. So they'll have teams that are established just to go out and sell corporate packages. So, like straight away, you might have a team that's with government. They work in corporate sales, corporate supports. They might, on day one, they might secure $50,000 in sponsorships and have sold $20,000 in VVIP tickets. That's the way it needs to work. I think if you put those kind of provisions in play, undoubtedly you can be successful.
In Bukom, normally you have these politicians coming to watch these bouts. If you are to give us an advice, how can we leverage on some of these things? You even have former presidents coming to watch those bouts, even vice presidents coming to watch those bouts. I feel like we can take advantage of that. If you are to advise us on how to leverage or probably take advantage of that to develop the sport, what would that be, Mike?
It needs to be sustainable. That's why I think that building a structure in play where you have teams committed to providing content, providing support, providing event services, that it can't be just the same person trying to run their event the same old way, just with a little bit of additional capital. That's not going to build sustainability, because what's going to happen is 3-4 months later, when they try to promote their next event, they're going to need more capital again. Whereas the other route, you might have shown them ways to tap into corporates. Then the next time they can go back to those corporates. The corporates come to the event, they enjoy the show, they're fully supportive, they know the government's supportive of the promoter, and then you can secure them. But you need a team, you need to bring an army. You can't do it on your own in this industry.
Indeed, you can't do it alone in this industry. Of course, I'm welcoming your messages on my line, +1 815 302 5489. Once again, it's +1 815 302 5489. Already, I have tons of messages Most of them are questions to Mike, and I'll direct them as such. Like I said, I'll read your messages. So wherever you're watching me, you can leave a message. You can comment, ask questions. Yes, on my hot seat is Mike Altamura indeed. Okay, so this one says, Sammy, kindly ask Mike for me. I want to enter into boxing, but I've realized that it's more capital consuming. I want to know how he's been able to sustain it for all these years, as he mentioned. And that's by Titus in Taifa. I'll do this one real quick. I like Mike Altamura. He's a great guy. I met him once, and he's kudos, Mike. But why are you not managing any of Ghanaian boxers of late? I don't know about that, but I'm sure he'll share that with us. I thought he was still part with Alex Intiamo or something, but he will do the answering. This one is great show. I always love your shows. I mean, the man speaking has a lot of intellect. I think that we probably should hire him as a consultant if you want to develop Ghana boxing. Better still, great show. Okay, that's Nunu from Labadi. Interesting, Nunu. Thank you so much for that message. Let me do this one. And listen, I'm just reading them on the bounce. I'm not really being selective. I'm just, whichever message that my hands gets on it, I'm just reading it. So I know lately people go like, you don't read my messages. I'll read it. Just send me the message and I'll definitely read it. Ask Mike for me. Per his. Okay, if you can just come out again, probably when you type the message, just read it over. It happens to all of us. This one is saying that I'm sure he watched the African games. Which of the boxers can he say will go far in the Ghanaian boxing scene? Okay, well, Sammy asked Mike for me. We have boxers like Samuel Techi still fighting in this division, whilst his colleagues have actually advanced, getting better promoters and managers. What is the problem? Will he be able to take on Samuel Techi for us? Because we think he's a world title material. Ask him of his opinion.
I'll come back to that one.
Okay. So okay, let's do. I think it's let me take my time before somebody says you didn't answer their question. Yeah. So let's do this one. Then we'll come back. Yeah. So if you can take it one by one, I don't even remember. Okay. Yeah. So Mike, the boy is in your court now. Give them the answers.
Yeah. Well, definitely, I would love to be working with the next generation of fighters there in Ghana. It's very, very true to my heart. Like you guys said, I think that Alex Nitamoa has been my friend for 20 years and will always be a dear friend. So I'm always happy to collaborate with Alex anywhere that's possible. If you have a fighter that you believe needs representation, needs support at the next level, you're looking for advisor, consultant, whatever it may be, feel free to reach out. I'm open to any opportunities. If something aligns with my vision or I feel I can contribute, I'm absolutely on board. As for not currently working with any elite Ghanaian fighters coming through, hopefully we can change that very quick. In regards to the All African Games, I think that Bukambanku's son has a very good future. I think that this was a little bit of a breakout tournament for him. I think it was very positive to see. I think Komi's a very good fighter. Very, very talented kid. I think that he'd probably be, like, in terms of development the next couple of years, he'd probably be my pick out of that crew. Samuel Tachi, it really is a crying shame. I made him a significant offer out of the Tokyo Olympics, and he signed the contract and then kept negotiating with other people, so I sent him a release. And it was the attitude. It was a very, very poor attitude. He's one of those people at the time, I think, that just thought that maybe he went from having no attention to having everybody chasing him.
Would you still want to have him? Because I think that he needs someone like yourself. Would you still want to have him? Probably.
Yeah, look, you never say never. I think he's... Class is permanent in terms of class within the ring. Until you get old and worn out, the class is always going to be there and the capability is always going to be there. But it's wasteful on my side if there's not a mutual respect and if someone isn't willing to work within the confines of what you represent. So it's not about controlling them, but it's about having respect for everybody's position, from the trainer to the manager to the promoter. So with Tachi, I felt, this is just my personal thoughts, we presented him the deal of a lifetime. He was ready to go, happy to sign off, but because he continued to have the interest and the attention from other parties, he kept thinking the grass was greener, grass was greener, grass was greener. Eventually, he ended up in an onion field with no grass. And then he's wound up back in the amateurs. If he was with us, he would have been 10-0 by now, and he would have had like a youth world title or something and been on his way. Instead, he's just wasted the last few years. But he's a very, very gifted kid. He was very young coming out of the Olympics. So hopefully he's learnt and matured from that. And you never say never in this game. I've learnt that over the years.
Okay, so this one is from someone that I know, a very good friend. Asked Mike, for me, must our boxers go to the nations like the US of A and the UK in order to be trained well? And does he think that the coaches in Ghana are really equipped for this kind of boxers?
That's a loaded question. I think that this is a generalization because there's some very good coaches in Ghana. I think that even, Coach Asari, who's a friend, he's not just one size fits all. He tries to diversify the training. And what I've seen in the gyms there is that the willingness is never lacking, but a lot of the work is based sheerly on conditioning. So it's bag sprints. It's going all out on the bag rather than good base fundamentals, feet in the right place. When people hit in the pads, it's just all bang. It's not stop teaching, getting guys to learn their rhythm, learn their distance, learn their control. And I think that there needs to be an elevation of the technical side of boxing. That's why you see a lot of these fighters get maybe 10, 11, 12 fights in their career. Then they go UK or they go to USA and change trainers and try to find the answers with another party. I think that it is feasible to be a champion being based out of Ghana, but it's difficult because of the lack of sparring, the lack of variety of sparring that you need to become elite. And back to what I was saying earlier, I do not believe, when I was younger, I was probably a little bit naive, but I don't think, taking Bukom as an example, you can't take a kid that's born and raised and educated in that system and drop them in Las Vegas or Los Angeles or New York or wherever it may be, or London, and expect them to be able to succeed as humans, forget boxing, but to succeed as humans without support systems around them, without a bit of home, without a bit of Ghana around them. And I think that that's why a lot of these kids get lost. I think that, they get homesick because it's a huge culture shock. And you'd only know it and you only experience it if you've spent prolonged periods of time there and the beats, the sounds, the styles of what these kids are raised with. It took me a month to realize that when Ghanaians are passionately talking to each other, they're screaming. The first month I was like, why are these guys arguing? They're like, no, they're just in jest. He's saying this, he's saying this. I was like, oh, so they're not angry at each other, But what I'm saying is, like, you can't lose you can't lose that sense of culture. And I know from traveling myself, like when I've spent more than 2-3 months on the road or living in other countries, I miss aspects of the life in Australia. You miss your friends, you miss your environment, you miss your hometown. So I think that it's key to have all the support in play. But yeah, back to your question, I think that it's not that it's necessarily required, but I think that if you're looking at the probable ways of how to enhance the talent, you need to diversify the training.
So by this, do you think that some of these coaches need refresher courses outside, or probably we need to get better trainers, better equipped trainers from countries who are well established? Like people talk about Cuba all the time. People talk about the US as well. Do you think that's what we need?
I think you can bring in seminars. I think that the way to kind of balance it up is if you look at even with these sanctioning bodies, with the the IBF, the WBO, the WBC, if you go to their conventions, they have refereeing judges, they have refereeing and judging seminars. And I think that when it comes to raising the profile of the sport, I think that we need training seminars, but not just boxing training. I think it's nutrition. I think it's education in weight cutting. I think that, so I think we need trainers are quasi psychologists to their fighters. And I think that having, education from sports psychologists to really bring you up to standard to understand the psyche, the mindset, and what a lot of these athletes are dealing with in this modern age. I think that all of these things are factors that contribute to elevating the standard no matter where you're at.
Oh, so this question is really also very much dear to me. Someone is asking that basically the person is trying to find out where are the business is of boxing apart from managing, promoting, and as it were. So managing and promoting and probably matchmaking, like where are the other sides of boxing business that we are not privy to?
Well, your position, journalist,
yeah,
broadcaster. I'll tell you what. I know Ghana's a bit different, but out here, the guys that own the ring make pretty good money. I think that learning how to video production, photography. You've got to look at all these different avenues.
Yeah, that's true.
If none of that clicks with you, go to a seminar, educate yourself on maybe being an inspector. So locker room supervisor, inspector, supervisors for sanctioning bodies make pretty decent money. If they have a high level of gigs, referees, judges, commissioners, it's endless. There's so many different avenues, podcasters, it goes on and on. But in terms of, like, say, the professional side of things, really you're looking at promoter, manager, matchmaker, and then it comes down to like the commission side, obviously boxers, trainers, but there's enough for everybody in the industry.
Okay, so Samuel Opoku Manu actually wants to know from you. He says, Sammy, kindly ask Mike for me, what is the difference between Australia, America, and that of Africa? Because it seems like we really do not see the business side of boxing. It's just about boxers fighting each other and nothing else. Because I've seen some of the very boxers that we celebrated actually languishing in poverty, and I still don't know how that happened. Anyway, so yeah, I guess that's really subjective though, because you can also talk about the likes of Richie Comey, even Azuma Nelson doing so well, and all that. But of course, I'm not going to answer Mike's question for him. So Mike, yes, you have the floor to answer that question. Yeah,
it's the economy of the sport. You got to look at it's relative to the economy, and then the culture there's very different. It's very tough. Like you don't have. So I'll go back to a non-boxing question. If you're not working, but you're trying to find work, are you receiving government benefits to support your family?
Definitely not.
Right. So in Australia, US as well, the system isn't a set up there with government support, but you still receive minimal. Plus you get food stamps, everything else to be able to look after your family. In Australia, if you can't work or you're trying to find work or that, you can get rent assistance. You get a few $100s a week. I'm not saying it's a lot, but you got health benefits, everything. It's enough to survive if you live modestly. So the difficulty you have there, a lot of these kids, the whole family is reliant on their trade. So even if the boxer makes $10,000, $15,000, it's not like that US. How far is it going to stretch? You might be needing to take care of 15 people. So it's very, very challenging in that respect. And I think that's probably what gets overlooked, why there's people that you look at to the absolute highest degree and you think, oh, this guy should be better off or should be in a better position. And then you're hearing that the person is going paycheck to paycheck or has no money, it's because when a little bit of money trickles in, they're taking care of the entire community.
Mike, let me ask you this question. I mean, in the days of Azuma Nelson, where anytime, I mean, he's fighting anywhere in the world, we had that confidence that he's actually going to win. But lately, it's a bit different. I don't know where that stopped. I don't know where that gap is, but it seems lately Ghanaian boxers are falling short anytime they go outside Ghana. I do not know what really the problem is, but with your experience, what do you think is accounting for this?
So probably you're getting the calls because it's easier to get visas now. That's it. You know, like you've got more awareness of it. Maybe, you know, does anyone remember when Ray Akwe went to Australia and got flattened by Rod Carr? Probably not.
No. Yeah.
You know, because you just hear, oh, he's fighting in Australia. And then 3 months later, the result appears. Now everything's in real time. So there's guys like yourself are holding them accountable. So if you see Prince Nate fighting again in the UK, you know that he's probably going to take a loss. You know, like, and it's in real time. You see that, all right, he's taken one fight, he's lost, and then a couple months later he's fighting again and he's probably going to lose. But can you begrudge the person for trying to better their situation when they've built their record at home and probably made no money, and they're just trying to get themselves further in their life and their career? You can't begrudge them for it. But the reality is that anytime you travel away from home, unless you have a promoter, you're probably going to lose. The greats find a way to tear up the script. Azuma Nelson almost did it. When he fought Salvador Sanchez, Azuma Nelson almost did it. The second time when he fought Gomez, he definitely did it.
That's true.
Absolutely, he did it. But it's not that easy. You know, like, I think that when you look at it and you glorify Azuma Nelson, you glorify, say, Nana Kanaru on the road, and all these fighters from that era, Ike Corte, being able to win in the UK, in Spain, everywhere, go to USA, bring his talents there. I think that you have to look at them with reverence, but you can't punish the current modern day fighters for taking chances and trying to put bread on their table and falling short. I think that you need to support them, but there still needs to be conversation about why they're falling short in education and why they're falling short. And I think that this comes back to what I was saying earlier, that I think if the economy can be raised a little bit, where people aren't afraid to risk their boxer's 8-0 record against another Ghanaian who's 8-0, and they can fight each other and develop, it's going to be better for the sport. But if they're not being tested and then they go and travel, you know, like Prince Nate is a good example. He went and fought Joe Ward. Joe Ward was ranked top 5 in the world as an amateur, had over 300 amateur fights. He would have never encountered or experienced anything like that. Now, I'm not saying that he could beat Joe Ward at any stage in his career, but you might get a little bit closer if you had a few more development fights or activity at home. You know, but for whatever reason, it hasn't panned out like that. I think that you got to look at things realistically, you know, and think about. I know it's hurtful because I know how much pride you're filled with when someone fights internationally and you see the flag. But you should be proud of these kids for laying it on the line and giving their best. But also look at, all right, how do we actually resolve these issues? And you resolve it with better development, with better policing of bringing the talent along at home. But the support is needed. If there's not the corporate support, all these guys, whether prematurely or not, you're going to lose them to the country, and they'll travel, become opponents, and they won't be the same again.
Okay, so a free is actually ask Mike for me, what do I need to become a very good manager, and how much capital does it entail? That's a very interesting question. But talking about Okonate, for many people, they felt like he was a stamina suspect throughout the bout. I mean, he was not really landing. The few times that he landed a shot, you realize that he caused Ward a lot of problems here and there. But you know, people felt that he was a stamina suspect throughout. Do you share that same opinion? This is just by the way, though.
Well, I can say that as soon as I saw that fight listed on BoxRec, I already knew what the result was going to be. So it's just, you might look at the video and feel that he could have performed a little bit differently, but he was always going to be a little bit outgunned against opponents of that ilk. So it's easy for the outside, from the outside, to be critical and say, should have done this or should have done that, but you don't necessarily know the presence or the pressure that he felt in the ring off the opponent.
Selecting fights for boxers, is it really the case that managers do see that this fight is not really worth it? Probably my boxer is going to lose, because at least you know your boxer's capacity and the level, but yet they still going. Is it just an African situation, or it's all over the world? Because we see that predominantly in Africa, where you have boxers going into a fight and you already know the results. What is accounting for all this?
It's end of the day, it's prize fighting. So you're fighting to make money. A lot of these kids don't know how to make money any other way. And so to go and fight at the Book on Boxing Arena, in a fight they'll win, they get $800. Or you can go Europe or Australia or UK or USA or whatever and get 15,000. What are you going to choose?
Definitely, you're going to go for 15,000.
The only reason why we look at it with such a harsh judgment is because it's spotlighted in everyone's eyes.
That's true.
You know what I'm saying? But if I told you, say you're working as a factory manager, and you believe that you're getting grossly underpaid, and I told you that you can go and be the executive director of a factory in the United States, and you can't work the role, but you're going to get $10,000 a month to take that job, you're going to take the job.
Yeah, that's true.
End of the day, it's about prize fighting. Prize fighting is to bring money back home to your family. So you've got to look at it like that, and the only way you bridge the gap of like the expectation falling short and the rest of it, and people reaching their potential, is to give them the support on the way up. If you don't give them the support on the way up, or the systems around them that can see them succeed, then you can understand and you can justify why these people just take these paydays on the road.
That's true. That's really true. I do have tons of messages though, but we do also have to wrap up. But I'm gonna ask you some few questions here and there, so that you give me your candid opinion on that. And of course, we probably wrap up the show. Anytime I get important guests like yourself, I try to do my own summation of everything that has happened, more or less like an executive summation. First of all, let me put it this way: to the likes of, let's say, I'm going to list some stakeholders. You tell me what they are supposed to be doing to help in this regard, and of course, we know the show. So, for the government, if you're giving me a summation, what should the government do? What are you expecting from the government to make boxing worthwhile in Africa? Yeah.
Better support of the sport. Better support any event you can have. You can create your checklists and your expectations, but once those are fulfilled and met, you need to wholly commit to the sport. So it might be, okay, we need an international platform. So say streaming on Fight TV, streaming on ESPN, whatever it may be. Have your standards. There need to be international opponents. So if you bring in an opponent from the UK, then that gives you a delegation. You bring the embassy of, say, Argentina in Accra. You invite them to the fight. Embassy of UK, you invite them to the fight if they're the relevant countries. So then it plays into political and international matters as well. So you got to look at what boxes you need to check. You need them to realize it's education, that anytime Ghanaian boxers succeed, it's promoting the country. You got to look at, as I've said, time and again, and I probably sound like a broken record, but at 8 years of age, I wouldn't have known what a Ghana was unless it was for boxing. And you look at how many people out of what was it? What World Cup was it that Ghana broke free? Was it 2006?
Yeah, South Africa.
South
Africa, yeah.
Yeah, that was what, 2010?
Yeah,
right?
South Africa. Yeah, that would
2010, right? So from the game with Mexico right to the rest of it, how many people were educated on Ghana, on Ghanaian players, Ghanaians' talent for soccer from following that tournament that previously were unaware of the country?
Yeah, that's
You know,
true.
I see it all the time. People couldn't tell you where in Africa Kenya is on the map, but they can tell you if they're running against a Kenyan in a marathon, they're in trouble. You know, and I think that when you look at the identity that sport brings to the country, I think that you need that recognition from the country, but the only way Ghana is going to produce more world champions is with the support of government. So I think that you need that box checked, but understanding how many people come in with just, you know, and you know, sell them on the world and give them an atlas. They need to be able to have a vision and expectations that need to be met. So I think you need a middle ground with government where they say, all right, we need this. That taps into sports and education. That taps into the tourism sector. If you meet these requirements, you unlock the funding. I think if you do that, the sport will grow.
Let's talk about television. We also know for a fact that the Zone, they are trying to come to Africa. We don't know that for a fact though, but of course there's been rumors here and there. But television, what would you say to television? I mean, television stations like the Super Sports and even the local channels as well. What are you expecting from them to help promote or make boxing better?
Again, it's just consistent broadcasts, consistent support of the sport. A lot of these broadcasters look at what the easier options are, that they can pick up a show from the United States maybe for $2,000, and that's a lot cheaper and easier to broadcast and probably does similar ratings than spending $30,000-$40,000 on production to run a slick event in Africa. But I think that if you're looking at building what your support basis and your support market is going to be, you need to make those kind of commitments to grow. I think that in terms of DAZN, these kind of networks, I think DAZN, I know from our experiences on this side of the world, DAZN is very much numbers driven. It's about subscriber rates. So you need a significant fight within Africa to present to them in order to move the needle and to force their hand. Now, if there was maybe some government incentivization or whatever there might be, that might, you know, twist their arm, but otherwise they're going to wait to see. I think you need a world champion like an Isaac Dogbe, the level he was at, before they say, all right, we'll commit and take a chance on this. I think if there was a fighter like that, a DAZN would take a chance on a broadcast in Africa and put the right kind of funds behind it. But that's what it's going to take. And that's a shame because we need the funds sooner than that. We need the support sooner than that. We need development events, but it's probably going to take a while before that happens.
Okay, so let's talk about corporate bodies and marketing agencies. What are you expecting from them?
From the corporate bodies, you got to look at boxing and realize that, you know, most corporate bodies support events, sports teams, etc., as tax offsets. And if you're going to do anything, you got to look at boxing. You're literally changing lives. You know, do you want to go and support a soccer player who's already making $12 million a year in the UK? Or do you want to support a local boxer that you can literally, he might be top 10 in the world, but he's hardly paying the bills, and you can literally change his life and change the way that the sport is structured? I think that they get more bang for their buck being involved in professional boxing. I think that there's ways in which boxers can be profiled and built and marketed throughout the year, but you need to be able to think creatively. And anyone, corporate world listening out there, if you need advice, you need support, you need to understand the pathways in which this can enrich and build your company, hit me up. I'm here to educate you.
Let's talk about the associations and those authorities, those people managing and handling boxing in Ghana. I'll use the Ghana Boxing Authority as an example, the Ghana Boxing Federation as well. But what are you expecting from bodies like that? You know, I know the show is being watched all over Africa, so I'm speaking for the whole of Africa. I'm talking about the bodies. What is your expectations from them?
Better standards from the From the Amateur Boxing Federation, I think that your fighters need more development. They need more international trips. They need more depth, better opportunities to really cultivate, build for Olympic qualifiers, build for Commonwealth Games. It's the bird's flown in terms of what the preparation is going to be for the next Olympic qualifiers in Thailand. But you have to take stock moving forward for the next 5-10 years and look at why you've had such successful systems in the past and why they're failing now, why you had more qualifiers in the past and why it's failing now. And I think a lot of it comes down to opportunity and experience. And if you're not securing the necessary funding from government in order to pay and partake in more trips and more development, be vocal about it, because it's essential to building the fighters. We know throughout the world, fighters grow in the amateur system through international experience. And usually the first few trips internationally aren't going to be successful. It takes a while to rise to that level. So I think we need better support there. In regards to the Ghana Boxing Authority, I think there needs to be harder policing on mismatches. I think that there needs to be harder policing on the level of fights that are viewed as being the standard. I think that the national title needs to be valued higher. I think that the way that you build and elevate and raise a sport is through placing value and prestige on your national title. And I think that needs to be a starting point as well.
So I'm going to go to managers and promoters, but, Chike Enuma K, I hope I pronounce the name well, do forgive me. You always accuse me of not asking, what do you call it, of not reading your messages. So today I'm going to read it. I took particular interest because I realized that you are saying that I'm not going to read it again. You know for a fact I'm not going to. No. So you basically asking Mike's opinion. It's a long message. You basically asking Mike's opinion on the Nigerian boxing contingent that fought in the just ended African Games, and you're talking about the fact that Nigeria presented 11 boxers, and 9 of them won gold, and 2 of them won bronze. So basically, I think they just want to rub it in our faces, but that's cool. Of course, we know Nigeria were the overall winners as far as the boxing competition is concerned. But of course, Chike, this time around, I've read your message. I think that the accusations, if you had made it a message, it would have been so great. But I've summed the whole thing up. I'm sure Mike will read it. Mike will get it.
They've got a very strong team. But you look at, and it's a balance of experience. It's a balance of amateur experience internationally, but also there's a number of professionals on the team. Cynthia Similori, who was a standout southpaw. She's already qualified for the Olympics, right? But she's had 7 or 8 professional fights. She boxed at the Commonwealth Games, so she has enough international experience that when it comes back to all African Games, she's always going to rise against that level of competition. I think that it just answers what I was saying before. It comes back to development and experience. You've got other fighters on the national team. They're in Nigeria. They're either from the UK, so they're developed in the UK, or they're established professionals, and makes a big difference. I think that's why you're seeing these kind of results out of the country.
Okay, now that we've gotten that out of the way, Mike, the final one is boxers, the managers and promoters, and then also the boxers as well. Let's combine all that together. Your probably your independent advice to them to help grow this boxing business that we're talking about. What would that be, Mike?
For promoters, I think pick your poison. Pick the fighters you're going to invest in, and invest hard. You better invest in 2 or 3 fighters you really believe in, and just look to match really strong fights on the undercard, than be trying to hedge your bets, taking care of 20 different boxes, but only doing 70% of the job for all of them. I think that's key. And I think the same applies for management, but I think with management, like I said to you before, cheap is expensive. So there needs to be, if you're going to be building and developing talent, you got to expect to just invest that 10 to 20% more and give them every opportunity. Think outside the square. Just because that hasn't been done in the past, don't think that your athlete doesn't need a strength and conditioning coach, that they don't need nutrition education, things of that nature, because all those things are paramount to actually excelling and succeeding. They're not going to just succeed on going to the gym and hard work, training, hitting the bag every day. You've got to think about how you can compete in the international space. But the challenge to promoters, like I said here before, is you got to put on the most compelling fights. I think that that's key. There's too many events where if 12 fights are put forward, I could tell you the winner of all 12 fights in advance. And I don't think that benefits the sport.
I guess definitely you're right on that one. Boxers finally, then we just wrap up the show because we've done more than 1 hour that we actually gave ourselves. So yes, for boxers, what would you advise the typical Ghanaian African boxer who is coming up? What would that be? How will he sell himself? How will he put himself across for people to know him? What would your advice be? What are the boxes that he should be taking in order to build himself, brand wise and even publicity and marketing wise?
Don't read the press clippings. Stay focused, stay grounded, stay humble no matter what, and understand that this is your career, this is your job, and this is your livelihood. It's a lifestyle. So you need to stay committed for the course. You can't win a big fight and then go party and be doing all kinds of crazy things between fights time and again. You need to stay dedicated to your craft. I think that I can understand the frustration with a lot of local boxers because they'll win a fight and then they sit dormant for months and they're waiting and waiting and waiting, and events get pushed back and postponed due to funding issues. So I understand all of that, but you need to find the right teams and you need to stay committed to your teams, because I know that a lot of these kids, they might not be well educated and they've always got people trying to steer them in different directions and they get confused. But you got to look at who's actually been there to support you and build you and get you to that point in your life, and have a sense of gratitude to those people. I think that, it's challenging when you look at the investment side of the sport, because look at Wasiru Muhammad. Like, what a waste. What an absolute waste for everybody, for him specifically. Such a talented, gifted kid, and he's missed it. He's missed his opportunity. He missed the boat. It's a shame. You get ranked top, what was he, number 11, number 12 in the world, and then he just disappeared, gone. It's just a waste. Think that you got to stay dedicated to your craft, and to the fighters there that are gifted and dedicated and focused and aren't securing the opportunities they want, don't lose hope. Just keep doing the small things, keep doing the 1%ers, and eventually the tide will turn.
Okay, this is for my politician friend who normally remains to be anonymous. Says, ask Mike for me, which are the 5 boxers that he thinks are potential world title material. In no any order, he should just mention them to me because of his experience. I'm sure that you're trying to tap in on that. If you're looking to do your own investment, that's a different thing altogether. But anyway, Mike will answer that. We've gone past time. There are tons of messages. I don't know how I'm going to read all this, but we'll see how it goes. Yeah, Mike, go ahead.
So current out of Ghana. Let me bring up the pound for pound. I'll tell you who I like. One I like is Daniel Gorsh. I think that he has
Selasi Gorsh. That makes the two of us.
He has a lot of potential. He's a very talented kid. We put him on a couple of the shows I was involved with. He was on the cards, and he's improved a lot since then. I think that look, world titles, it's such a prestigious level. So I don't want to minimize what it is. You need a lot to go right and align. I hope that Alfred Lamptey can find the way back. He's still young, and think that it was a good lesson the last fight, like a good learning curve for him, and hopefully makes him hungrier and makes him better. So that's two. That's two. Let me think. Honestly,
whilst you're doing that, let me. Okay, so this one is saying, okay. Dennis response says, I knew you were not going to read my message, but you didn't write any message. You just accusing me of not reading your message. This one says, you said you were going to open the lines. No, we've really gone past time. I'm so sorry, but I'll forgive you because at least you've asked all the questions that we needed to hear. Okay, I'm sure that Mike has been a delight, indeed. So, if you guys can see, there are so many messages. Where am my camera? I can't read all of them because we need to wrap up the show, and I'm sure we'll bring Mike in, maybe in subsequent editions. Definitely, we'll definitely bring him in, subsequent edition. Okay, ask him about the current. Oh no. Somebody wants to know your opinion on the current what do you call it, GBA president, but
I actually get along with the current president. Yeah. So you know, we've had some good conversations over the years. I know everyone has different vantage points. I've learnt from mine that you don't inherit everybody else's baggage. You go into everything with an open structure and open opinion. And I think that if there is ways in which the GBA could be steered or they would listen to suggestions, the way to go in is with an open attitude. If you go in with a critical attitude, your chances there are completely sailed.
Man, there are tons of messages here, and some of them are people that I really respect. Some are politicians, and kindly do forgive me. We've practically run out of time. Some of the questions are, but Mike, your final word. So we wrap up the show. Definitely, we'll bring you in studio, and I'll ask all the questions. Somebody's telling me that I should dedicate 15 minutes for call-ins. That's also good. We'll put that into our plans going forward. No two ways about it.
Yeah, we can do it.
They say you didn't finish. You didn't finish mentioning all the. Okay. Okay, I get you.
You're stretching my brain because I don't think.
So I'll just limit it to 3. You just add one and then let's.
I'm trying to think.
I'm sure that Mike has 2. I mean, I think it's enough at least. He's mentioned 2 potential. You know.
Yeah. Look. There's other talented kids there. I mean, you've got is it the flyer Muhammad Ayite, talented kid.
Yeah, you know? Yeah, he won gold.
Like he's a talented kid, but it's a long way off being world level.
Okay.
You know what I'm saying? Like there's the one I can give you is actually a female based in the UK, Sadem Mama. She's British Ghanaian, but she'll probably be fast tracked to a world title at welterweight. So that's one. But what this highlights, I think, is that, you know, if you asked me the same question in 2017, I would have said to you straight out, Dog Bay.
Yeah.
I would have said to you, Richard. I would have said to you, Richard Comey. If you needed to round it out, you would have said, you know, Freddie Lawson's talented. There would have been, you know, people were still high on Busted and Steve's still unbeaten. What this reflects is,
do we need a boxing league? Kindly ask him for me. I mean, and you see, some of you are even sending me voice notes. Oh, that's cool. That's interesting.
A boxing league is a waste of time because what happens is once people lose 1 or 2 fights, they drop out of the league. So it's a good idea in concept. What you need is like the Contender, like a profile tournament. You know, you pick your best weight class. All right, featherweight's your best weight class. 8 fighters from Ghana enter it. You profile them, you build them, you build a TV show around that. 1-hour episodes. You get to profile them, go to their home, go to their village, learn all about their lifestyle. And then at the end of it, you come out with one winner, big corporate support, but even the people runner-up, the people maybe make the semis, they all have elevated profiles. That's the way you do it. I think leagues don't work. You look at boxing around the world, leagues only work short-term. In regards to what I was saying with Ghana in general, I think that if you look at the country, there's a lot of very good young boxers coming through, but there needs loads of development. No one is winning a world title the next 1, 2, 3 years.
I'm a boxer. You know? Is he willing to manage me? Okay. So we'll see. Mike, let's just end the show. If there are tons of, and I appreciate that. I appreciate you guys a lot sending me all those messages. Definitely, I will know what to do. You know, that's why sometimes I do summation and I ask those questions. I'm sure you can attest to the fact that I've asked all the questions that matter. Some of them I went through those messages. Do forgive me. This is where time will allow us. Mike was about to give us his final words. Then, of course, we'll wrap up the show. Mike, quick one, and we go.
Yeah, well, just final word is that I appreciate the platform, appreciate the conversation with you, and hopefully we can do it again soon. And
Definitely.
I look forward to getting back over there to Accra, hopefully in the next few months. I always feel at home and very welcomed in Ghana, and I love the passion and support of the people. I love that people are actually engaged and wanting to know and curious about the sport at the highest levels. So hopefully I'll be back there next few months, because I always feel at home when I'm within the country.
There's some fantastic questions though. Someone is even asking, in all your workings, who has been your best boxer and all that. But Mike, we'll do that again. Definitely, we're going to do that again at the right time. Definitely, maybe next month we'll definitely see what we can do about that. Definitely, we thank you so very much, Mr. Mike Altamura. Of course, an astute manager by all standard, a world-class manager, managed 10 different boxers for a world title. That's no mean achievement. Traveled over 80 countries in the whole of the world, and in Africa, he's been everywhere. We're very much grateful to the Australian boy, Mike Altamura, for gracing this particular show with his presence, knowledge, and intellect. Till I see you again, it's been a fantastic afternoon and evening in Ghana. And this is where I will have to draw down the curtains. There are so many things I needed to do. First of all, many thanks to the president or vice president of Ghana Boxing Supporters Union. Too bad your video got to me late, but of course next week we'll do something about it. We're very much grateful. You guys holding us down. Many thanks to you as well. All those people that helped me the show. Remember, today was a one-man show. I did run everything myself, and we're very much grateful. Till I see you again, remember, a positive anything is better than a negative something. And look, don't live life charting the path of trying to go stress-free. Remember, the more enemies they have, the more you're doing well. Take it from me. Bye for now, and do have a wonderful week ahead of you. My name has been Sammy Ofosuhene. I say bye and take good care of yourself. I'm gone.